All right. Okay, this shall be an interesting restorative selection, I think. It'll start kind of normal, and then it might get a little bit curious with the bolster options. So if you happen to have two bolsters, I want you to get two. You'll start with your flat one. If you have a second one, it could be a round bolster, like more of a roll, or you could have whatever other bolster you have. Maybe it's another flat one, or it's a pranayama bolster. Okay, but let's start with a blanket rolled up under a bolster that's straight back under your spine with a blankie on top. Get a belt, buckle it up, and bring your feet together, your knees outwards, and take the loop all connected overhead. And before you slide it around your feet, I want you to access a couple blocks and place them under your thighs. These are thighs, these are below my knees, so I do want you to think thigh support versus knee support, so it might feel a little bit pressure to begin. But once before you lower on your bolster, get your belt around your feet, and taking that belt to tighten it so that is at your eyebrows of your buttocks, so up above the buttocks, but lower than your spine. And then once you recline, you can turn the block so they contour to the legs. You might find that your feet kind of push forward to feel like this is stretching your lower basin, which I kind of like that sometimes it works out, that flows. It's not all the time for me though. This depends on how my blocks happen upon the skin of my leg, because the skin isn't flexible, right? So if it kind of it grapples with my leg, then I support, and then you can add your sand. Okay, maybe not. Maybe you have sand and you decide, oh, this is the day to put sand from my chest area down to the abdomen, or maybe you have sand across the ribs. So we'll start with the stretch of the breathing muscles, and the slowing and deepening of the breath is helpful for slowing down and lowering the heart rate and probably soothing the nervous system a bit. So let the arms find where they're going to settle, as well as your sand, whether it's here or maybe it's not on you, maybe it's on your feet. And let the arms find a position so that the shoulders can relax. Okay, and how the motion of your breath is that the diaphragm, right, is a domed shape, right? So when you inhale, that flows down towards the abdominal area. And as you exhale, it flows back up towards the base of the heart. So it's a pretty interactive breathing muscle, meaning that it's soothing when it's moving, right? So it's soothing internally, more than just one location. And I suppose many of the respiratory muscles are like that. Some are in one spot, but this is more of a fluid inhale. And on the exhalation, empty the lungs. Feel that coordination of breathing. And at the same moment, feel how you settle from the movement of breath, right? Almost as if that is required, some dynamic experience that you relate to, alternating the in and out breath. Kind of a lyrical quality inside the body. And just scan, is your weight of your head resting back? Is your neck able to relax? This might be the only time you really feel your neck can relax. And now feel where the shoulders are centered back. Feel if the heart lifts, and I want you to slide any sand away. If it happens to be on your feet, it'll probably depart when we shift our pose. But for the time being in time here, we feel where there is this length in the front line, right from the heart center down to the navel center. And let that area basically feel like it's slanting. So the weight of the hips is quite convenient to keep that area to open. It's like you're not trying to actively do anything but be on your props to help that area align. So that's kind of why I like props so much, is that if you kind of respond to the prop, your body rests into them, all of them, you'll probably find some awareness in the collective sequence here. So unbuckle. We're going to take a hip crossover here today. So you'll slide the belt actively from the legs, and then it'll be resting at the mid body. Push the blocks aside, walk your feet a little bit closer towards your seat. And if you happen to have a ball, if you don't have a ball, you can use a block right besides the left hip, but the ball is a little more cushiony. So you'll add the ball besides the left upper outer thigh, or some of us end up placing it near the hip, but it's kind of hard to push into the hip. If it's just right next to it, you have to kind of scoop it under. So see if you can use that to scoop under that upper outer left thigh. And then first things first, the weight of your head is back. So I try to actively just let that be. And then lift up the right foot. If it's hard for you to hook the right ankle to the left knee, slide the left foot down and then make that change. Because you can see how the knee will kind of push in. It'll swerve just so you can make that connection. So slide it down. You can always slide it back up, right? So I can slide my foot, then connect back up, and then lean your body weight to the ball or the block. The block works okay, but as you hold on to the right knee, you're going to guide the right leg and the hip circulation left and a little bit in towards your center. And you'll figure the sensation load out, what you're willing to do. This right arm can come back, or your right arm, but you could also let that right arm rest beside you. You don't have to reach it behind you, but offer that focus here for your right hip and see if you can experience the intensity and stay with it. And then maybe it stays the same. For me, it kind of does on this one. At least today I can tell it will. If you've been doing a lot of walking, a little bit extra, time outside, you'll probably feel your hip stretches a bit and your calf stretches a bit more when we get to those. So emphasize the center, the heart to the navel being centered. So you don't want to take a twist with the upper body whatsoever. I think that's the main thing on this one. Don't twist the upper body, only that leg crossing to the left. Okay, and if the arm being down is a little easier for you to focus, then stay with the arm onto the side, on the ground. And with the weight of your head back, breathing. I can feel that there's a little bit extra weight on the left side of my spine. And the right side is comfortably centered, but it is kind of a crossover pattern into my hip. So let go of the knee, let the right arm come down. And I want you to center back in so that the right knee shifts outwards. Your foot is still hooked to that left knee, but try to let that right knee shift outwards, just its natural gravitational connection. It can't really come off of the right knee. So you're trying to coax that right leg to stay out. And you can kind of feel the difference in the sitting bone connection here. Okay, now shift so the right foot lowers down. Try the crossover to the right knee without moving the ball yet. See if you can, if it's different when the ball is right next to that left thigh, when you lift and hook it over. I always find this interesting to change sides and see how my coordination is on the joints. So take the ball to the right thigh or the block. I suppose if you don't want to use a block, you could probably stuff like a towel or another blanket in there too, so it's a little bit softer. But it adds a little bit of boost to the hip. So you're going to lean the body weight to that right side, and you're going to hold the knee with the right hand, the left knee is being held. And you'll feel, do you have a similar guidance? I tend to pull this side a little bit towards me more than I take it across, some habit. I'm going to see if I can back up and go across first and then towards me. And of course, go by your knee's needs. If your knee doesn't like it and it responds, then you might have to pass on one angle, like you might pass on pulling it towards you or across. Depends on the part of your knee that's affected by any injury or arthritis. So when you're holding on, you can let the left arm stretch back. Yeah, try to let the weight of your lower parts just kind of be. See if you can find simplicity. Like I hold onto my knee. Okay, I got that going. And then I'm definitely using that pressure onto the ball to support the circulation here. You can wiggle a little bit and feel the waist trying to elongate. And it's fine if you have your left hand down by your side. Breathing slowly and deeply. And feel how the stretch of the breathing muscles might be apparent in the front of your body more than the back, but lucky that you have a bolster behind you so you can let the body weight rest and maybe feel some of the circulation in the breathing muscles, the pulse of the breathing muscles. And now let go of the knee and then guide if both arms are down by the sides and left knee shifts a little bit out. I try to just let it be simple. This is really figure 4 pose. So my left knee slants out to the side. And then weight of your head on the bolster, on the blanket, I suppose, but feel what parts of your spine can center. Okay, and let's take a supported bridge. So we'll uncross the left foot down, feet a little wider than hips distance. And let's not worry if they're turned out or in or how it's going with the feet exactly right now. But what we'll do is we'll place a block, okay, under the pelvis. And it's going to be a flat block. It's not going to be high at all. Just the lowest height is under the pelvis. And then as your legs stretch straight down, push the blanket back. But that's important. You only want the bolster and the blanket under, but no more height. And then feel if you can let your elbows wander outwards. I know that they feel like little weights here, the elbows. They kind of plunk down to the side. But that's nice, right? So this whole skin layer from the armpit chest area out into the elbow has this interesting circulation. So feel it's almost like you're moving your arms, if you can, a little bit back to lift up the heart. Right? We're not trying to levitate. We're just relaxing back on the bolster and the block and gently reaching down. If you happen to be lucky to have a wall there, it's kind of fortunate because you can push a little into it, but I can barely correspond with the wall when I am trying to get a little more length. Okay. All right. Before we get to all this side stuff we're going to do, take the reach of the heart. Yeah, relax your intensity of trying to get the arms more excitable. Just work on the openness of the ribs. Take a slow breath, feeling the torso move. Okay, and then as you exhale, Okay, slide the feet in and press down in 2 feet. Lift the hips and slide the block out. Okay. All right. Here we go. So what I want you to do is to get a sandbag. If you're already on your back, you might as well just use this ease for your shoulder joint to take it over to the left side. Okay. Your belt is not going to be used for, I don't know if we'll use it again, but so really put it off to the side so it's kind of out of the way for now. Okay. Now you'll roll left, you'll come up, and what you'll do is you'll take the bolster. If you have like the flat, let's see, if you only have a standard bolster, you'll probably use that here. But if you have a round bolster, you're going to start adding it in. So this is the compilation of prompts. Okay. If you have a round bolster, or your major one is in the center, as I mentioned, but if you're going to use a larger bolster, you're going to put your smallest bolster behind your blankets. Okay, that's included those that have kind of little bolsters, the one that you're not as excited about. And then you'll add either a round bolster or see this could also be like a part of a couch, huh? These are kind of, this is more like a couch cushion. Now you can find all kinds of things at home that you would lie on your side. Okay. All right, so get a ball and you're going to place that down by your right knee. You're going to start here in side stage. So the left knee is bending and it's next to the bolster. Now, if you have the round bolster, it's going to be next to that leg. If you only have like one of your standards and then a bunch of blankets, then you'll follow like you normally do. With this would be your basic bolster and your blankets would be there in your block. Okay. So now lean into this left side. Now this can be a bit of an event, I find. So I'll start with getting my sand on my side, so it'll be a cross. You might have to play a little bit with the ball at energy. And then when I use my blankets here, the bolster overhead, if you don't do shoulder stretches on this one, then you might not need to worry about this bolster overhead if you tend to be here with your arm down. Now, the bolster in the middle might take you time to figure out where you really want your sand yet, because if it's crimping up your waist, if it's pinching a bit, it might take you some time to figure this sand thing out. Because mine is just quite a bit of rib stretch. Okay. All right. Sand or no sand? I don't know if I really want sand on this one, to be honest. It's kind of a lot. It's almost too much. Okay. Stretch the right arm either overhead or by your side. And this can be enjoyable to let your skull kind of rotate so you're on the back of the skull. You'll feel you have a little more success here in the ribs probably. But some of us like to let our head rest on the side. But you can tell how the bolster underneath you that's higher, for those that have a higher bolster, how rapid that circulation is into the ribs. Okay, if it feels like, oh my goodness, this is too much in general, then just don't use your sandbag, okay? You'll probably feel plenty without the sandbag on this one. I feel a little bit better without the sandbag. Just, I can get my ribs to stretch on their own. It's almost an added bonus, not necessary if you're just figuring out your round bolster idea. Yeah, I think a foam roller would work okay on this one, but you might need to put like a blanket over that, because those are kind of, they're round, but it might be too much pressure just to have a foam roller at your ribs. If it was a full thick blanket, it would be fine over it. Okay, let's stay here for a few moments. Now, the reason I added this idea on, and we'll do a little bit of awareness with the side band for quite a while today, is that I want you to get a lot of support in your hip area today, and then finding that it lifts up into the spine. So we start the side project out here. And what's important with your weight of your head is to let it go, whether your arm is overhead or by the side. The weight of the neck go. If it feels too low, you can take your blanket and fold it one more time. Just kind of feel if that's more comfortable. It's okay to be more comfortable. You should be in the moment of deciding your prop choice. Okay, now finally search the breathing awareness that's layered in your side. If it feels like it's in one little pocket of the waist because you're getting used to a higher piece of equipment under your ribs, it's a little bit higher. And for some of us, it's feels like it squishes. It just pushes up. It gets higher rib cage area. Okay, so give yourself some opportunity to just kind of be a little random about your breathing movement. Okay, so when we come out of this one, we're going to stay with this side, right side focus. Okay, you don't need to put your right side on a hanger or anything, but I want you to come up. So coming up from your side, yeah, this is tricky. So coming up with, conscious support. So I push into my right hand on the bolster and then I come up. Sand, of course, is away by then. Now, if you've got whatever is your round or your secondary bolster. Okay, so let's say you got one bolster today anyhow. You could just put that bolster in front of you. I want whatever's in front of you, something you can lean into. And I can lean into this bolster, but let's say you don't have a bolster, you sit on your 2 blankets. If you've got an extra bolster, it's in front of you, and you're now going to push in your blankets from behind you so they're behind the bolster. Again, if you don't have another bolster, you're going to sit on blankets. Okay, so we're going to take a seat on top of a bolster that's flat or blankets. And then whatever you have in front is a round bolster or secondary bolster. And take a cross-legged position. These instructions are really important. So I think what I'll do, can you see me okay? You're going to kind of sort of see, I'll be as clear as I can. Okay. If I start pivoting, I have a feeling this bolster is going to turn this way. These will be all over the place. Okay, so take the bolster actually, everyone has to have a bolster on this. So you'll have a bolster on top of a block right next to your right foot. So I'm simple cross-legged, right foot forward. My block is next to my right foot. Kitty corner or puppy corner, whatever it is. Okay. Ball can go under a knee. So if we got a knee that's going, I'm not so interested in this crossing, you can put it under a knee and add your sand on top of that upper right thigh. So your simple cross-legged right leg, sand on right thigh. I've got a ball under my left knee because I know I'm going to push into it. Okay, of course you could have one on either knee or add your block as well. Now, you're going to shift your rib cage. So first things first, let's counter pose. So we're going to turn to the right, left hand to right knee. You're kind of rotating the axis of the spine, getting it kind of eager for where it's going. We'll see. So, of course, my navel is centered sort of forward. But when I take a twist, it starts to swerve that area. So I want you to feel that you can sit upright. You can rotate through the ribs. But simple breath. Don't focus on how far you think you should go. Just recognize the awareness of sitting up. It's kind of it, just sitting up. Okay, now turn to the left knee and reach to the bolster on that left side and lean into it. So the bolster should be up on a block so you have easy access to touch the top. I know the round ones can be a little bit rolly, but you'll see where we're going with the round thing. Or if it's a flat bolster, it'll be just fine. Okay, so lean into it and let your weight of your head tilt down. I don't want you to try to create spine extension or magnify that because it's just not that realistic in this shape. So yes, my right knee points out to the right side. I'm not trying to lift up my knees. In fact, I'm trying to let both knees kind of center downwards. Yeah, that's tricky. It's almost like you almost force that pressure. So observe, breathe. If your head tilts, that's okay. Okay, now slide the hands to the very short end of that bolster, and you're going to bring the bolster forward, right in front, and just simply lean forward to that bolster. Cross-legged works fine. Suppose if your knee is bothering you and you need to kind of stretch it out, you can always stretch out the right leg and take your sandbag off. Don't worry if you need to do that, do it. Lean into it, and yeah, notice kind of the nature of the tone of the spine. So we've gone from that side tone to forward, kind of, you could call it tuning though. It's not just necessarily tone, it's like tuning up the frequency, right, into the bones. I mean, that's kind of all we're up to, right? We just put pressure and pressure over this side and this side. Hopefully we get a tune up out of this. Okay, now if your bolster can just stay where it's at, or it drops, some of us will just drop to the floor. And then you're going to take that twist one more time to the right. So my left hand holds the right leg. It could be my knee. It just happens to be my knee right now. But that's not always realistic. It might be just above the knee. But when you turn, right, we're turning again here. So we're going to rotate and, feel the sitting bones central, right? Don't avoid taking such a twist that you kind of pivot your hip. I want you to keep this center. It's hard. I just kind of tug on my knee, but I'm trying to get heart lifting, turn. This is it. This is all I got. I don't need to force it. Okay, now as you come back forward, take the sand away and the ball, and your blankets are behind you. Some of you might be sitting on blankets, which is fine. And then you'll take that right leg, stretch it back to pigeon pose. So if you happen to have a bolster in front, which is kind of nice to have, you can put your elbows on the bolster. Okay, center the elbows out wide and lean forward. You could also be farther down the ground with your elbows touching the floor, but use the support of all these props, right? We're emphasizing, even if you happen to be seated on the blanket, still you've got props. Let the back leg release. So if you're trying to kind of clench into the right knee or just above the back of that right knee, see if you can let that become easeful. This one could be interesting, even if you've done it for a long time. If you change the props, you can find different value in arching the spine. Very few of us want to do more rounding of our necks over and over, so we kind of avoid creating that humpback, right? So we're trying to get a little bit of extension and feel the value of that when you breathe, right? That expansion of the ribs. Right? It's hard to feel rib expansion if I'm here in rounding. It's hard on my breathing. So this is a little more breath liberating. Yeah, it may take a few more energy points to do this, though. I think it does. It's an extra calorie of work. Okay. All right, so feeling where the left hip is in its point, right? It's pointed out to the knee. The left hip points out with the knee as it reaches to stretch. And we'll come back around with both feet out. Okay, so if you got the bolster in the front, You're going to stretch both of the legs out. This might feel kind of nice. Just kind of shake them out. Do a little bit of tapping on the side of the knees. A little bit of tapotement. And then as the feet are in that, probably 10 and 2 is good if you can go with that. 11 and 1 is fine. You might find 10 and 2 with the feet, that alignment can be interesting for your centerpiece. Because if I go 11 and 1, I kind of start to round. So if I push them a little bit out, then I reach forward with the bolster. And if you got kind of a squishy round bolster, that's okay. Just lean forward and feel that there might be a roundness in the seated area versus the spine area. So notice how you can accommodate your back releasing. Might take a lifetime to figure out how to do that, but you're the only one that's going to help yourself out, right? So here we go. See if we can get a little dose of help. So if I don't have 2 sandbags, I don't bother putting one on one thigh. And for me, I like to start to bend the knees in the final few breaths of this because it feels like a strain on my knees. If I keep them in this reach, it's near hyperextending feeling like it's a strain. No one needs to strain the back of the knee. It doesn't seem to be that helpful for that joint. It's just not, right? So it is a piece of your living equipment, isn't it? So lean forwards. Okay, there's a lot of elasticity in our rib area. Probably that doesn't get as exhausted as the joints. So feel the movement of the ribs. And then when you shift back up to center, let's take our feet closer and then we'll reset for the second side sage. So if you're feeling like another side of stuff, okay, you can stand up and down if you want. Do cat-cow or whatever you need to do, but probably getting into it is going to take you some time anyhow. So you'll lean to your right hip. You'll take your bolster, if you have 2, one to the back, right? The blanket stays centered, and the bolster. So the blankets are on the other side of the bolster if you're using the bolster like this. And if you're deciding, I'm going to play around with my one bolster and see if I can do all these things they're doing, that's fine. You can find pieces of cushions in the house to add to this practice. But I like the ball on the inside of the left leg. I didn't really enjoy the sandbag on this one for me because my bolster's too poofy. So I was kind of feeling like my ribs were getting squished. So if you've got a plump bolster here, it might be too much to add sand for now. But if you can do it, then I'll go for it. So right arm is straight between the bolster and the blankets. This is really important here. Okay, one side you might notice, my head doesn't feel like it has enough support. Well, it could be a lot of things. It could be how high you are planted on the bolster. You might be with different ribs on the bolster edge. It's likely one of those things. So you decide on the height of the blanket. I don't want you to go too high because you'll start tightening one side of the neck, but you also don't want to be too low. So go with felt sensation. Can I let the weight of my head move down? Right? Can you just let it go? Left arm is either stretching overhead to that bolster or block, or it's down by your side. One side might feel different than the other side. You have complete freedom to move your arm a little bit here and there for the whole pose. You don't have to stay still. There's no pose police here. We can all do our motions if we're in the awareness of the side. Maybe if you move the upper body a bit, your lower body gets still, or the opposite. And so the right knee is close to the bolster. And for me, this left thigh position feels great. I'm letting my left knee center on the ball. Works out really good for me. If I try to push the leg farther back, kind of use my other foot to nudge the ball, feels okay, but I think I'm better off with less arch in my lower back. Some of us will like more hip flexor stretch, which means the leg stretches back. But you know, the whole continuum here is important, not just that you feel that you get that arm overhead. If this is kind of creating a bit of clunkiness in the back, then you might be better off with that left hand down on the bolster. So it's important to just notice what's easy. Might make more sense. That sounds sensible, doesn't it? I think so. So let the body weight relax into the hips. Let your head lean down. If the blanket starts to feel like it's too much, you can change it around. If the neck is going to lengthen, that's important. These are probably the areas to bring some good focus to, is things like the neck. Now, before you get out, which is probably and makes you anticipate something, you know, feel where the sensation is. If the rib area in the front might already have enough stretch that the sensation it doesn't spike as much, or you kind of feel it coming on into the ribs. You might notice, so there's kind of this low back waistline feels a little bit of heat. And so feel the body weight center, right? And then notice how the front of that left thigh has some sensation of length. Now, what is that length sensation? Okay, if you have sand on, this is a good time to slide it off. And then we're going to keep on this whole band. Okay, last time when I sat up to do the side band, it kind of fizzled away in my thoughts of focus, I have to admit. So when you come up this time, let's try this. You're going to lean down, get rid of the ball for a moment, bolster forward. The nature of it is to roll back to you, isn't it? And then take a bolster. You might, if you don't have one bolster, sit on the two blankets. Okay, for this one, sit on two blankets if you have one bolster. Otherwise, you'll come up. You're going to sit on a blanket stack or a bolster. Left leg crosses forward and right. Okay. Then ball. See, I like the ball on the opposite leg that has the sand. Personally, I think that feels somehow supportive. It's kind of interesting. So you think the leg that has sand might need the ball, huh? You decide. Okay. All right. So when we have that support of that left leg with the sand, then you take the bolster. So last time we set it up, right? We had the bolster. Now this time it's going to go to the right. So it's right next to the left foot. The block is under the bolster. Okay. So this is how I forgot about the side focus, because we started with our centering practice. So get a feeling here of the lift of the heart, and then pivot the waist so you're going to stay upright. You're not going to be rounding and twisting. You're going to be upright, pivot towards the bolster, kind of feel how the heart turns. And then on an inhale, center back in the middle. Exhale, turn left, right hand to left leg, left hand back to the blanket might help. And try to let that right thigh, if you've got the ball under it, try to let it rest towards the ball. If your leg touches the ground easily, well, then I guess you don't need the ball. But even if my leg was close to the ground, it would make my sacrum area, would make the SI joint kind of tilt. So I guess I like props, they help me. So maybe this side has a little bit more twist to it. Maybe you can feel the change in the ribs. Might not be happening as well. And now come back and center, hands to the legs, inhale. And exhale, go to the bolster. So I think that maybe when I lean down, I have this much height under my arms. I don't feel as much of the side reach, I have to admit. So you can always go without the block, and then you have to go lower. And you might go, oh, I feel a little bit more of that side. But I really am hopeful that we can keep the lift in the back. So that's why I'm a little higher with my block under it. But it's up to you. If you're not getting any side stretch, you can lower your bolster by taking a block out. Okay. Yeah, we've done this before where we have the bolster like this. It's been a long time where we do the side reaches, but I'm just maintaining some simplicity here with the sequence. So lean into the bolster. And then feel how the ribs turn a little bit. They kind of rib under rib. Okay, lean down so your arms kind of press into the prop. Maybe your head leans a bit. Breathe. Rib expansion. Okay, now feeling how the hands slide on that bolster. And then when you come back in center, right, take the bolster to the center and lean forward. So we're going through each direction with the spine, the circulation along the muscles along the spine, the paraspinal. So we're going pretty slow with that. So lean forward, try to find a little bit of lift in the ribs, a little bit of leaning, and lots of caution with the lower back, right? So there could be a position here where I push too much with my hands and it puts too much volume in the lower basin of my back. I don't want to say spine, but the back itself, muscles back here. So, and the organs too, the kidneys. So feel if you can have a sense of lift. You have to kind of visualize that lift inside the body. And then when you lean forward, feel just the right amount of pressure. And if it's too much and you need to kind of let your spine gently round a little bit, feel what that's like. So for me, I feel like this is a lot of rounding, but I don't think it is a lot if I look at the video of it. So this feels really scoopy. So, and then I'm trying to find a lot of extension. This to me feels like I'm really arching, but I know it's actually just straight. But I have to really exert to get that straight. I know it just tells you about your habits, your daily postural patterns. You know, stop looking down, huh? Okay. Now, as you twist to the left, you're going to turn left. You might have to drop your bolster, and you'll turn to the left and try to keep that lift of the heart, that rotation, breathing. It only helps. Yeah, notice the little bits of clutching that you have, not just with like hand holding leg, but the inside volume of the body. So feel whenever you can kind of let the weight of the legs just descend, and then feel the heart ascend. Doesn't mean it looks like it's floating. You've got floating ribs, but maybe not a floating heart. Okay, now when you come back to the center, take the sand away, take pigeon pose, left leg back. Okay, so as we stretch the leg back, we have the right knee, and I tend to kind of move my right knee a little bit towards the bolster. Of course, it's not on top of the bolster. So my leg is kind of hugging the bolster, or my right thigh. So the support in front of you could be blocks, it could be another bolster. You don't want to force trying to push your elbows too far in front of you, so no reason to tempt them to go too far. Feel that it's just the right amount. So the nice thing for me on this one is I can kind of reach with my rib cage gently. I love this. A little bit of height helps. Sense where the spine is pressing a little bit inwards and up, right towards the heart. At the front of the spine, right behind the heart. And keep that rhythm of breath, of heart pulse. Okay, now we're going to start using the wall. So what I want you to focus into is to feel where the weight is on the bent right leg. And then you're going to, carefully move away from this bolster. So if you only have one bolster, you don't have to spend energy on this idea, but if you've got a round one, just push it aside. And now we're going to be one less prop. Okay. All right, swing the left leg forward and let's come around to the wall. So you're going to bring your feet to the wall. And I want you to have, I like a blanket under my knees. Not all of you seem to be adding this sometimes. I don't exactly know what you're doing, but as far as I can tell, some people use a blanket under the knees and some don't. So you choose, okay? Now, once I have the blanket supporting, I'm going to turn my bolster straight in front and, all right, I need just one blanket, one bolster, and push it far enough forward so when you are on the bolster, you stretch forward, I want you to be able to push your feet into the wall and lift your knees up. So if your bolster is too far back to your thighs, it just feels really awkward. Push it a little forward, but lift up the knees. Actually, don't go all the way down. Sorry. I want you to keep that so they're a little lifted. So once you go down to the heart, it's harder. Well, it's harder to get back up. It is, right? So once you're a little bit up, stay a little bit up. Because once we crash, we kind of land on this one. So I can feel the development in my hands with the pressure. So I want you to keep a little bit of lift of the heart forward, push into your feet, okay? Now lower down, but keep the heart lifting. I know, can I have a little part of my heart touching the bolster? Okay, that's fine. But stretch the arms back. Try to keep the legs active, pushing into your heels. Okay, I know you have to touch the button on the side of your leg and maybe it'll activate. Okay, press into your feet, lift up the heart, breathe. And this one, it really helps. Okay, shoulders back. All right, now feel the hands underneath. Shoulders are probably going to roll a little bit, but knees down. Come back up into table pose. Round your back into cat pose, chin to chest. Inhale, natural arch. Hips move back. So it's a pretty mild movement in the torso. But you're going to round your back, chin towards chest. Cat pose. Inhale, natural arch. Okay, and feel that there's just as much movement. So equal the energies of the back. I feel more back than hip, but I'm trying to balance awareness a bit in my hips. Okay, now you're going to come back down to the bolster. So you're going to lie back onto it, but keep the chest lifting. This is key. And I feel like, okay, I've got some balance. My knees are on the blanket, they're down. Okay, got my knees down, a little bit easier. Now as I lower down, elbows by the sides, take away the pressure on your wrists, lift the hands up. Breathing. These are our little baby back bends. These are our lizard poses for the day. If you add the little push-ups, right, you get extra points. All right, now when you lower your palms down, let's slide the elbows forward. Oh, it's so much easier. Now onto the elbows. The hands, palms are either down. If I turn them open to the ceiling, I find that just that little change, it's kind of interesting in the lower arm pieces, affect my shoulder pressure. So kind of this basic instruction works really good, the Sphinx pose. Fingers stretch out, knees are down. I'm not trying to be forceful with my feet, but I do feel the wall. And I think the wall emits a little help in our back. So if you put a little bit of pressure into your feet, try to keep the chest forward. Okay, slide the hands back, come up, and then let's put the bolster to the side. Okay, and let's take it so when you step forward, well, first things first, let's have our blocks to the sides of our mat in front of your head, overhead, I guess you could say. And feel if you can lift your knees up and stretch your heels towards the wall, so they're tilted up at the wall. Move the chest back towards the legs back towards the wall. Everything's kind of going wallward now. Not inward, but wallward. Fingers spread out and feel where there's charge through the muscles in the back. I mean, for me, they're feeling charged, not recharged here. Okay. Now, feet come closer together, so you've got some little bit of pulse in the legs. And lower down onto the knees and grab your blocks underhand so that the blocks are at the second setting. Take them so they're pretty wide on the inside of your sticky mat. And then bring the right foot. So I have to kind of get a feeling of how this helps my hips. So I like my knees close-ish. They're not touching perfectly, but they're close-ish. My feet touch the wall. Then when I move my right leg forward, I've got to find how I stretch my spine to get there. So when I scoop the knee in and then I reach through the foot, I'm trying to let that right side of my torso lean into my right thigh, like they're closely connected, aren't they? And then lean forward, stretch the chest front, and then take a reverse lunge. So the right foot, toes are up, back of the leg stretches, of course. Inhale, lunge. Lift up the chest as much as it will go here. Exhale back, reverse lunge. Yeah, take it slow, inhale forward. I know we never go exhale forward, do we? I don't think we're really up to that. Maybe that's next level. Okay. This time when you go forward, I want you to lift up the back knee and step the foot to the right foot, so besides each other. Feel where the hips are. They're kind of approaching this interesting glute force because the knees are bending. So see if you can reach the hips back and up towards the ceiling. Separate the feet so they're a healthy hips distance, and then let your head lower down, bowing towards the legs. You can hold your elbows. You could have your hands on your blocks in front of you if you don't like that full drop of the head down. Some of us don't like this inversion. It's too much circulation. And some of us, it just creates pressure in the head, and that's not comfortable. So it's up to you. Head lower or head forward. You choose. And then bank on this one for a few moments so you can get that hamstring value. This is a high hamstring value position, isn't it? Let the spine lengthen. Now, to simply feel all the circulation in the face, right? The skin cells of the face. Relax the face. Okay, bend your knees and bring your hands to your blocks. Slide them in. If you already have them, you're set. Bring your feet a little closer towards each other. And then step the right foot. And when it goes back, for this circuit today, you're going to simply reach the heel towards the wall and then carefully lower the knee down. Okay, now if you don't like having the knee on the blanket, you have a different idea. You could do these alternating knee forward and leg back lunge and reverse lunge with the knee off the blanket as well. You probably already figured that out if you're not one that likes your knee down. So lunging, inhale, exhale, reverse. I like the blocks a little lower or no blocks, one or the other. Not a big fan of the blocks high on this one because I can slide the shift of the weight forward and not have my hands perched up. So alternate lunging and reverse lunging. Feel a little bit of that connection of the foot at the wall. That might promote a little bit of energy to reach forward and back. Good. Breathing with that alternating one breath per movement is kind of a good one. And then trying to slow it down is kind of natural. So feel when you lean and feel when you reach back. And that last time that you lean back this time, moving through, I feel kind of legward in this one. Leg is the guiding motion, but if I can get my hips to be a little bit of a guide, that would be useful for my circulation. So I'm trying. I'm getting a little closer to it. Okay, now when you shift forward, I want you to carefully slide the left foot back and take child's pose of choice. So that would mean the knees are apart, the feet are closer. If they're too close to the wall, scoot a little forward. I like child's pose with my bolster under my forehead. You could put your blocks into your hands. You can have your forehead down on your bolster. You might find that some of you come all the way back like this. You have a little bit of a deeper crease, but it really needs to be okay for your knees. So, it may not hurt now, but you might find some other time of the day that this could have totaled part of your knee, could have taken too much pressure. So it's okay to go easy route too. So take a few moments with the spine even. That's the whole focus here. Just a few moments. Okay, now when you walk the hands in, you're going to scoot forward off the blanket and you're going to take your bolster to the wall. So I went back and forth on the round and the flat on this one, and having two bolsters was just too much. It took too much detail to get it ironed out. So I decided maybe I'll do a tutorial on two bolster bridges, but it was just too much effort to figure out the spacing of your props. Take a blanket behind you. If you don't use blanket for bridge, all you'll do is just slide it back so it's not under your neck. And I would like to go without the blanket under my head because none of us need to make more of this rounded. So it's likely the floor can be helpful for that part of our alignment. So use it. So get your bolster at the wall, your flats, and you'll have your sandbag off to the side yard. You'll place a ball between the knees. And you'll have your two blocks. Now, if you go lower your head down on the blanket, it feels good, then you might just use the blanket. No big deal, it's fine. If you decide, I'm going to try without, then move it away. It's always there to slide back. Okay. Because this neck area might have enough of this tone one direction that it's hard to get your skull to rest back. It's going to be this big space here. That's the issue, right? So feet at the wall first. Okay, you got to get close enough that you can get some successful movement. Sometimes if you're too far back, it's a real drag on the muscles. So when I lift my hips up and I move my arms behind me and alternate lift and lower, really go slow with it. So you're not scrubbing the spine. That's not the right technical word, but it feels kind of like this interesting massage of sorts through these bones. Right? It is bones, but it is the connective tissue over that you're trying to manipulate. So the tightness that pulls around the bones that you feel as nerve sensation of discomfort, we're trying to manipulate that. Myofascial manipulation, that's what we're up to. Okay, so alternate lifting and lowering. I think you'll like when you move your hips up the highest, that'll feel the best on your neck. But if your head tilts back and it feels weird, there's work to do on your circulation all the way up to the brainstem. Okay, now last time with the feet at the wall. Okay, now lower your feet down and you might scoot a little bit back so that you can easily feel your natural arch of your pelvis and our natural arch of your spine. Okay, now squeeze the ball and relax the grip. Okay, you need to have the ball right, a good position between the knees. Between the thighs doesn't work very well, although it does look like it's between your thighs, but it's got to be that bone of the knee. So push it in. I get it right. Right. So squeeze and release. So the thighs feel a little bit of near shakiness. That's a good one. Squeeze and release. You can use your blanket under your head for this one if it's feeling your skull feels too bony. That is kind of what it is, right? That's why we use a blanket a lot. Okay, so when you push in, okay, notice this area in the front, right? You don't want that to squeeze in. So if my ribs are clenching, but I'm not really doing the work very well. So I want to squeeze, release, squeeze. Go ahead and alternate kind of that pumping action, like you're pushing into the ball over and over again. See if you can really emit that energy in your legs. Like, whew, legs are working. Okay, now next time you let go of that squeeze, let the spine center back. So like you're trying to flatten out the spine a bit. Push down into your feet. Lift up the hips. Let your arms stretch overhead. Okay, breathing. And then I want you to lower your spine, and you can have your arms overhead or down. You decide. You're going to be completely the one that monitors that. Now, you can feel this rib stretching. So I want you to keep the ball for this one today. Take a block, whether you take one or two, probably one is enough, just at the second setting, straight across underneath the back of the pelvis. So lift the hips. Yeah, this takes a little bit of oomph to get the hips to go up. If the feet were at the wall, it'd be a lot easier. But let it be just that right amount of energy. And then when the block is there, you almost wish the block was a little bit more squishy, I know. But it's a nice way to center the hips. Some schools have thought with we do inversions with the bolster under the pelvis is only to use the blocks because they're a little more formative on the bones. They respond, the bone, they feel more like bones, right, than a bolster, right? And they're more firm, defined, probably a little more level, okay? So feel where the hips are centered on the block. If you need two blocks, you can set them side to side like this. They could be on the second setting side to side, so it's a wider base. You could do that too. And then I want you to push into the ball a little bit. Okay. Now you can let the legs stay bending, and you can also let the legs try to reach down towards the wall. You might lose your ball. That could very well happen. Don't feel like you've got a force holding on to it. If it goes away, it wasn't meant to stay, I guess. That's the way it goes. Okay. Things come and go. So arms are down by the sides. The shoulders have to set back. Yeah, I like the ball to keep my knees kind of aware of not hyperextending, but at some point I have to be careful not to get too connected to it. And just, if I don't like it there, I can also lift up my knees a little bit and let it drop. And then it goes away. So that works really good for me. I'm pretty content without it. So feel where your feet push into the wall. If you've got the roots of the toes, the balls of the feet pushing, it's a really interesting part of our foot. Okay, now if the shoulders start to roll back up, they could do that. You want to keep open with the chest. Belly is relaxing with the breath. Okay, let's let these final few poses really be specific. So when I inhale, the abdomen lifts, and then exhale, it centers back down. Breathe in through the nose, important. Breathe out through the nose or the mouth. You probably don't breathe out of both, do you? Just kind of notice how much you exert. Okay, slide the feet in so the knees point up. Push into the feet, slide the block out, and then take your spine to let it lower, smooth. You could even kind of go a little side to side. Smooth out the tension. Okay, slide the blanket under your head, right above the shoulders. And then I want you to push your bolster to the right side of your mat, to the right side. And take a moment where you cross the left leg to the right and get a sandbag. I think first things first here on this one. First, you need your ball. Okay, so ball to the sacrum area and sand maybe, not for everyone, on that exterior left thigh. Okay. If you don't like the sand one day and you usually like it, that's okay. The sequence has been different today, so could be a couple reasons. But when you have that support and you decide on the angle of the leg, it's entirely up to you whether it's straight across or it's a little downstream. It changes a bit time to time, doesn't it? The left side of the chest is open. And you try to match the energies of the upper body reaching and the lower body crossing over. Rest your eyes. Stretch the breathing muscles slowly. Slide the sand away and then the ball. And then bring the knees so that they are pointing up just towards the ceiling. Center the feet, hips distance, and then move the bolster to the left side of the mat. And if you need to scoot a little bit onto the right side of your mat, make sure that everything is in line, that you don't just move your hips and your upper body stays left. You kind of move everything a little bit over if you like that. And then left leg relaxes, right leg crosses to the bolster on the left side. And yeah, take it slow. Maybe you have to do a little bit of back and forth with your knees. Maybe it's not a good idea to pull them firm into the chest yet because you don't want to shock the sacrum because we're going one side layer to the other. So you don't want to pull the back. But these are pretty intelligent maneuvers when you stay lower basin. And then sand and the ball options. They're both options. Some of us will use just the ball, some just the sand, some neither. Okay, on one side you might go, the sandbag feels heavy. Just feels different on this leg. So it could be before you get the chest open to the right side. But where the spine is maneuvering, it should feel, if you scan inside the body and really sense, it should feel pretty good on the spine. and the lift of the heart. Feel helpful in the lower back, but again, you might have to reset for your body's response. Get your response team activated. Figure out where you need to change things, release things, let go. And feel how the belly moves with the control of the breath. Feeling where there's that rotation in the midsection. Okay, so that rotation creates openness. So when you take the ball aside, and then the sand, you can kind of press that sand towards the wall. Okay, guide yourself left, roll through the ribs and push, because they're pretty rolly, even though they're kind of inside this canister. They're kind of a rib canister, huh? So when you push the bolster next to the wall, we're going to take our hips right up on top and slide the blanket in and have a sandbag, as I mentioned, nearby. And then if you have an eye pillow, go get that. And then you're going to swing the legs up. So you have to be on one side of the bolster to then roll up. And I suppose you don't really have to sit like this. You could lean down and then slide the arm and stay here for a moment and then get that momentum with the legs to go up. Each person sort of finds their own little way to get to this one. Some probably crawl on their back all the way to the wall this way. I've seen some people somersault and let the legs swing up the wall. And that works really nice. You get a very connected position, but you have to trust a somersault to get up upside down. Okay, sand can be on your feet and or not. Okay, you can have a blanket here on the core, or you could have a sandbag here. So if getting that sandbag up is just more effort than worth, you can have your sand here on the ribs. But of course, the blanket could go there as well if you have that. I really like to have this mild kind of wrap in the core. And then when you have the arms resting down, you can let the spine center. And there's that mild inversion. Right? The pelvis is a little bit lifted, so there's natural curve in the back. And if your blanket feels too high, you can lower it down to a single fold. Feel that continuity of in and out breath. Just reversing the effects of gravity to the heart and the lungs. Now, if the arms are lower than the heart, you might feel a different accumulation of, the circulation in the fingers might get cool. To relax the fingers. See if the hand that's your dominant hand can curl a little bit. Little baby hands. Take a slow and deep breath with the ribs motion. It definitely pushes down so you can feel the abdominal area bulge, right? And that's not what that is. It's the diaphragm muscle pushing down. And that's what happens, right? When it's pressing down, then as you exhale, it actually sweeps back up, right? It's a dome-like, moves up to the base of the heart. Okay, now bring the feet, shift them a little bit away from the wall. Be careful so you connect to that low back. And then bend through the legs, maybe open your eyes and slide the sand or toss it overhead. And then roll to the side. Give yourself a moment. If you need to stay knees to chest, that's fine. But if you roll back and forth, that motion in the lower back can feel nice. But roll to the side and feel that you can use your hands to push you up. Usually hands a little forward of the face is helpful versus right underneath your jaw. Learning how to get up from being on the ground. Okay, let's take a moment sitting on the bolster with the spine natural arch. Bring the hands up to balance in front of your heart center. And taking a moment to feel the support from others in this practice that we joined. All the practitioners together. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, bowing into your heart.